what do you think is the major challenge for someone that's going all natural without the use of any external?
That's a good question. I like that.
Ooh, that is a very loaded question.
Today we have Mike Kawasaki on the show today. Mike has coached Dibz to getting his pro card and has coached multiple other athletes to getting their IFBB Pro Status. Check it out. My Muscle Connection, episode 45.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the Mind and Muscle Connection, episode 45. This week, we got our next interview with master trainer Mike Kawasaki, who is also been my prep coach for, I think, 8 years now. And when I say master trainer, that's not something that we're just, throwing a label on because he's on. His experience is far and beyond what I've ever met for most people. So excited to have him on and, be able to pick his brain, hear his theories. Mike's taken me from a novice on the third place in 2014. And, now we're pulling out top fives and IFBB shows, looking to qualify for the Olympia in the next few years. So Mike knows his stuff. And I say that's an understatement. I also want to say we are getting great feedback. I'm not sure, but I have gotten great feedback from 3 people I don't even know have come up to me saying that they love watching our show. And thank you everybody for sending me the Jerry Lee Lewis links. That's not what I was looking for, by the way. I wanted a stream. People were sending me the DVD. I wanted to actually download the movie. I can't find it.
I've got it. Give me a thumb drive. Give me a thumb drive. I downloaded it.
Oh, great. Yeah. So I wanted to see that movie. Appreciate it. And I also appreciate, please like, share, comment. We are picking up momentum each week. And I didn't think that we'd ever, a year ago be, having random people come up going, dude, fucking love your show. It's motivating or inspiring. So, Mike, tell us a little bit about yourself. How long have you actually been in the gym bodybuilding?
Well, I started working out, lifting weights basically when I was 12, and I'm 53 now. And I got bit by the bug early, and I just saw that hard work and doing things properly could really transform my body. So I worked out for several years, and I did my first show when I was 23. And then after that, I took a long break from competing. I had family and kids and other responsibilities, and I took that very seriously, and I took care of that first before I ever did another show. And then I finally decided that I wanted to go out doing a national level show. So I did the USA's in 2012, and that was the last show I ever did.
Now, bodybuilding significantly changed from, when you first started till now. I think even 2012, I think men's physique was just getting started. What's the difference, would you say, was bodybuilding in your day to what it is now? And do you think like the new divisions have saved and made the sport more popular?
I think it was a necessary evolution for the sport. Is that not everybody was looking to be a mass monster or a genetic a freak of nature kind of thing looking on stage. People wanted the more aesthetic look, so men's physique came along, and then then classic physique came in to kind of fill in that full body aesthetic look, all the legs and the upper body matching and everything. So I think it's a good thing. Back when I first started competing, there was only bodybuilding, and, guys would train for years before they ever thought about getting on stage. So back then, you would run into competitors that were basically journeyman bodybuilders. So if you won, you deserved it.
Now I can definitely say your style of training is probably the most intense as they come. Anybody who's worked out with you has specifically done your leg workout as I think that there was a life-changing moment that comes across when you survive a Kawasaki Leg day. where have you put that? How'd you put that type of intensity together? You know, I see a lot of people, even now, I still see people doing like 3 sets of 15 on the leg press, a couple sets of squats. And I mean, I get it. There's a time and place, you know, for that. But when it comes to your specific style of training, the intensity is just at an unseen level.
I think it stems from it's basically it's rooted in the fact that I was a wrestler for so many years, and wrestlers train so intensely for, you know, extended periods of time that I don't know, it just translated into the way I worked out as well. And I found that, you know, you have to push yourself beyond what you think your limits are each time so that you can continually make progress. And I think that's what's missing a lot of in what, you know, people are considering themselves training hard. I think they're not really reaching their full potential. Yeah.
You guys, anything?
Yeah, no, I wanted to take a different angle here and ask about your thought process on the daily basis, right? Like what goes through your mind when you wake up, and what fuels that drive to do what you do best?
It comes from always wanting to be just a little bit better every day. I know there's a big movement now that says every day better. And I mean, it's a good model to live by. So if you're going to be a little bit tighter on your diet each day, or, you know, you're going to move a little bit more through the day, these are all going to benefit you in your end goal of changing your physique. So I think about it pretty much every day. I'm not saying that every day I'm better, but I always try to start the day off that way anyway.
As moving to being a trainer though, or being somebody that coaches people, you guys still keep that same mentality, because I think one of the worst things a person could do is think that they already know everything. So if you're not competing and you're coaching or training people, you still have the attitude like every day I got to try better. I got to keep learning. I got to see what else is out there, because I think a lot of people get stuck in their ways and sometimes ends up holding them back.
Right. Yeah. You never stop learning. And once you do, then you pretty much, you know, that's the end of it for you. So I always keep my mind open to new ideas or how other coaches are doing things, or and not one system is going to fit every client. So, you know, if you are well versed in many different approaches, then you can pretty much help anybody.
It's a puzzle too. Like you could take pieces from you could study one trainer and be like, well, I don't like this, but this, well, like, let's say that their knowledge on fats is very, very above most people, but I'm not a keto guy. But then I can go over here and take this and say, well, if I apply what he knows with fats with this right here, maybe I'll get this. So you start, like, I know and you've known me since the first day I started doing this shit. So, you know, taking little bits and pieces from different people and putting them together, you end up coming up with your own system. And that's for anybody that's training out there, that's what I would advise. I'm sure Mike would back me up, is learn from as many people as you can and take for as much from it as you can. And don't ever get in the mindset that one system is the only answer. Because even like Mike said, there's some people that work well with carbs, some people work well with fats. I've even seen recently, there's people that actually do better on very little protein. There's people that can eat fuckloads of protein. It's just, you have to know what stuff to look for and what to apply. And if you only know one system, then you're going to be useless when you come across these people that need your help.
Exactly. And the body is definitely an ever evolving organism. So what worked in one prep doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work in the next prep. So you got to be willing to, or be able to, you know, roll with the punches, so to speak.
Who are some of the people that you've looked up to or that you've learned from coming up? Like, who are some of the, when you go to look for people for knowledge or people that you've idolized or taken stuff from, who are the ones you do that with?
I think the first probably name that comes to mind is Milos. I think he's very knowledgeable. He can break it down in his theories to the actual science that backs it up. I look to some of a lot of Charles Glass as far as like movements goes.
Oh, yeah.
And how to isolate properly. I try to like gear my training to being as much of an isolating exercise or doing it that way as possible, just so that you're getting the most out of every rep. And I guess as of later coaches, Scott Stevenson kind of comes to mind. Theories from Dante Trudell. Yeah. Those are all smart people. And I'd like to try to listen to people who actually have the white paper science to back up their theories.
I've actually just started looking into Dante Trudell and Scott Stevenson stuff. And I was kind of surprised at how much knowledge I've gotten out of just looking up, especially Scott Stevenson.
Yeah.
So I agree with you there.
I think one of the biggest flaws in today, we always talk about the social media aspect is that people will throw that this is the only way to do something. And that's it. And I recently saw this last week. I was talking to Dwayne about it, that one of my buddies he's a prep coach in Vegas. He's a competitor, really great guy, very knowledgeable. But he was saying that your body can only handle about 5 weeks of intense training without a deload week. I was like, what? Like when I go to the gym, I'll take a deload week or a lighter week when I feel it, in the body, like, hey, okay, it's time to take it easy. But he made that claim and saying this is apply to all. And now you got people that like worship this guy and say, yes, that's the only way to do it. I'm like, that's not necessarily always the case. You have to look at person per person, different genetics, different, everybody has a different intensity. And one person's training may be completely different from another person's training response.
How many ways are there to recover before taking a week off, though? I mean, there's so many other things you can look at to somebody to see if they're under eating, not getting proper, like an excess calorie day or something to recover constantly. I mean, there's so many factors that play into needing to take time off,
Right.
What do you think, Mike?
I definitely think it's recovery is definitely an individual thing. I mean, if all of your factors are perfect, like your rest, your nutrition, days off from the gym, you just have to listen to your body. And that's kind of one of the things that comes with experience of being in the gym and training for a good amount of time, is that you get to learn your body. And that's, I think, in any fitness goal, that should be one of the great side effects of reaching that fitness goal, is that you learn your body, you learn what works for you, you learn what doesn't work for you.
Yeah. So from what I understand, well, the Kawasaki Way, I'm not sure exactly when it started, forgive me, but in order to create your system and create your style, I'm pretty sure there were some challenges that you faced before that. Could you highlight some of those challenges? What were they, and how do they affect what Kawasaki Way is right now?
Initially, what limited me in the beginning was that I felt most people wouldn't respond to the crazy things that I did personally in the gym. And I was wrong, because when I started really just pushing people through what I would consider a hard workout, they just loved it. And that's how I got to be known as one of the hardest trainers. So, and it's I'm not for everybody, but I got a good amount of people that want to challenge themselves. So,
I recently actually talked to my high school wrestling coach. I've been, I don't know why, I've been a little homesick lately. I miss, or my midlife crisis. I don't know. I'm getting old, so I'm being told. So,
don't rub it in there.
So I called my high school wrestling coach, and he's just a huge fan of, believe it or not, bodybuilding. And he was just like, "You look like Frank Zane." He's like, and I was talking about our training, and I think that you have to have a strong relationship with your coach. You have to give them, and I was explaining to him, I gave Mike so much time to learn my body, learn my mentality. And, if you don't have that working relationship with your coach, or an untrustworthy one, it's not going to work out for you, and it's more than just, I say this, do this. It's an understanding. Maybe in the beginning, a lot of athletes, when you start off and you're a new guy, you don't know anything, I say you do. And then you guys kind of, you grow together, and it's like, hey, what about this? How does this work together? And he was like, well, it looks like, you kept that wrestling attitude. I was like, actually, Mike was a wrestler growing up. He brought that same wrestling mindset to the sport of bodybuilding. And I think a lot of wrestlers go into bodybuilding after, just because, we grow up that, dieting, that, that high intensity workout. When I was competing before bodybuilding, I used to run like marathons. I ran 2 marathons in my day. I did half an Ironman. And, I did Kung Fu, got my black belt in Kung Fu, but nothing filled that void that wrestling had. I don't know what it was. And I think this is what I've been thinking about recently. Bodybuilding filled that void for me. That feeling when you're on stage, for people, looking to get into the sport, when you're competing and you're being compared to these other guys and you're fighting to get into the middle, there's literally no feeling like that. When you're in that middle, dead center of that stage, and like, oh my God, I'm winning, it is probably the best feeling in the world. And that addictive feeling you feel for like, a minute and 30 seconds, a minute and 30 seconds, you're on that stage, and then you get your award. That's what drives the 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Last night I spent about 4 hours cooking happily, because, you just get that little taste of that win, and that it just becomes a lifelong addiction. You've got to keep feeding it.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like that all that discipline that you build from wrestling translates so well into bodybuilding, because if without that discipline, that it's not something that most people are born with, but it can be developed, and you develop discipline to wrestling so many years. And then, it just translated so well into bodybuilding, where you can, it's not easy to eat the same food every single day, day in and day out, and not want to have something else. But the bigger goal is to achieve what you're trying to achieve, and so you sacrifice, and that's what this sport is about. Is what are you willing to sacrifice?
I think kind of changing the way to think about it too. Like one thing I've noticed that I do a lot for a while now when talking to people is trying to change the way they think things. That's why when we got into this project, I was really excited to get started with it. Is, you say it's hard to eat the same thing every day, but at the same time, I could say, if you do this and you know what's coming every day, you don't have to worry about what you're eating. It's there. You just got to get it down and carry on with the next thing. So you don't have to worry about where you're going to go for lunch or how much it's going to cost. It's already set.
Right.
So that's another way. I'm not saying either way is right or wrong. I'm just saying I try to change the mind frame so that people can start looking more at the positive and not focus on the negative parts of it.
Exactly. It's like they say, never go grocery shopping when you're hungry, because
I learned that the hard way.
You fill up your cart with all kinds of crap food that you really didn't want to buy. So why, if you're on a diet to improve your physique and you're not going to have the proper food readily available, you're just setting yourself for failure. So set yourself up for success by having all your meals ready to go, not have to worry about when my time to eat, I'm going to eat it now, and I'm not going to get to that point where I'm just going to fall off my diet and eat whatever. So yeah, it's always good to plan.
It's almost like people will set themselves up to be in a position to where they say, oh, well, I guess I'll just have to get this. When really, if you backtrack and look at how they spent the previous day or so, you're like right there. You could have, while you're watching TV, you could have fucking made your food for tomorrow.
Oh, for sure. People self-sabotage themselves on the daily.
I think that's a trend in society lately, is self-sabotage. Yeah.
And the thing too is there's the opposite. People want a pat on the back for shit they should already be fucking doing. You know? Like, look, man, I tell people all the time, at my level, there is no room for error anymore. There's no room for missed meals. There's literally no, and there's even at the national level, there's no room, right? Yep. And people, they start off, look, I ate my food this week. I worked out hard. Motherfucker, you should be, because some guy's trying to beat your ass, and that's the ultimate. That's a paradox about bodybuilding is that you'll never think your physique is good enough because you always should be bigger, you should always be leaner, you should always be, so you push yourself harder and harder and harder. You say more discipline to look better and better and better. But the paradox is you'll never think you're good enough because you don't know who you're competing against. Something about today's society is like people will do their meal, they'll take a picture of it, they'll put up on fucking social media, get 30 likes. Woo, good week. Yeah, week 1. Week 2, good job, man. Good job. Keep going. Week 3, no one gives a fuck anymore. And then people fall off after that because you're still wanting that pat on the back for shit you should already be doing. You should be working hard. You should be, especially if you want to win. If you don't want to win, well, whatever.
Yeah, I think this life is an obsession. The lifestyle that bodybuilders lead. I think this applies to any type of discipline. Like in my case, I'm a hypnotherapist. I obsess over how I can be better at what I do every day so to make my clients feel better and heal them in a way that is fulfilling enough so that I can learn from each client and keep going and doing what I do better and better every single day. So I think this lifestyle is an obsession. Would you agree, Mike?
Definitely. It really caters to the obsessive compulsives out there because every facet of from the time you wake up to the time you go to sleep, bodybuilders think about what they have to do to be better. What meal I got to make sure I have my meals for the day. I'm going to go to what I'm going to do later when I go to the gym. How much weight am I going to be moving on this exercise? I mean, it's just, it becomes all encompassing to be successful. And I think Dom says it a lot that winning is all consuming. And in this sport, it is. I always tell people this is the most selfish sport in the world because everything else has to take a back seat if you want to be the best at it.
What are some of so in my line of work, part of my job entails crushing limiting beliefs of my clients. They come to me with a ton of limiting beliefs. I can't do X, X, and X because there's a clause, right? What's your process as a coach to crush some of those limiting beliefs that you come across, and how do you turn it around?
I think as an effective coach, you have to know when you're going to give people the milk and when you're going to give them the bone, meaning that sometimes you just need to encourage them. And then the other times you need to be hard and say, hey, you can't do this crap anymore. You gotta man up and do this. And a lot of times people think that they can't do things because they haven't tried. And that's the biggest frustration of people with me is that, have you tried? And they say, no, because I know I can't do it, but you haven't tried. Mm-hmm. So as a good coach, and the way I train, I try to get people to try the weight that they don't think that they can do because I'm there to spot, or my training partner here Dwayne is there to spot. So I think people can build confidence if they have a little bit of training wheels for the difficult things that they need to try to do. And then the training wheels can come off because they built confidence. And that confidence can translate into them trying even harder things.
It takes off the limiters, so to speak.
Yep.
And you know what? Also, not knowing what it is that what it is that you want and what you do is very important. If bodybuilding is not for you, that doesn't mean you don't stay disciplined in what it is that you do. I've seen, Mike, you've trained a couple of football players, you've trained a couple of CrossFitters that just into functional fitness. And one thing I learned about Mike is whatever it is that you want to do, he has the knowledge to support that aspect of the sport using the same disciplines and stuff like that. And I say that because, sport bodybuilding is not for everybody. CrossFit is not for everybody. Wrestling is not for you. Have to do what it is that you want to do. So when you know what it is that you do, you can go at it 100%. Just don't think that, bodybuilding is the end all be all. I think that if you sign up for a show, hey, I want to see if bodybuilding's for me. You sign up for a show, do the show, finish the show, and then you can say, you know what, this is just not for me. And I had an athlete like that, right? She was she wanted to try bodybuilding. She was just like, hey, I want to be a bodybuilder. I said, okay, you're going to do a show? She went, she did it, she finished, and she says, this is cool, learned a lot, but not for me. And she got into powerlifting. But I told her, it's still all consuming. You still got to go the same thing. You still can't miss a meal. You still got to train hard. It's just directed differently. Now she's listening to some fucking heavy ass weight. I'm not training her anymore, but when she made it through our gauntlet of a contest prep and then went out there, she took those principles, deeply.
Yeah. Hard work always translates into any endeavor that's worth doing. If you're not going to work hard to try to achieve your goals, you might as well not even try.
And that's because you got to love doing it, man. When I was in Norway, I'll never forget, it was the happiest days. It was Norway, 30-degree gym. I had the whole gym to myself on the ship. And everybody was hungover from the night before. I woke up at 4:30 and I was training by myself, legs in the gym, and nobody there. And that's when, it wasn't that exact moment, but that was like my, I guess, Rocky IV fucking, training in a cabin moment, because like I wasn't doing it for anybody else. There was no, we weren't allowed to have our phones. There was no Instagram. This was because it was fucking leg day. I got a lot of shit to do today. I had a whole 12-hour day ahead of me. So what I did was I got up 2 hours earlier, worked out in a fucking cold gym for an hour, and took out my 12-hour day. Was I tired? Fuck yeah, I was tired. Was it a long day? Fuck yeah, it was a long day. But guess what I did? I held myself accountable. And I didn't say, well, I got a long day ahead of me, I got to go do this. I didn't do that. No, I fucking said, I'm going to do this. I don't care what time I got to wake up. 4:30 in the morning, 30-degree gym. That's when I said, okay, I fucking love doing this. This is what my life is all about.
For sure. It's funny because you mentioned that, and this reminds me of some of my encounters with other people. See, on the side, I also teach English mainly to international students, and a lot of them are from Japan. And so I get a lot of the Japanese students, they come up to me and they ask me, it's like, how do you get better at English? I can't get better at English. I tell them, listen, what's your routine like? What is your routine like? Tell me exactly what it is. So I go to school. Okay. How many hours do you spend at school? Well, about 7 hours, 6 or 7 hours. Okay. What do you do after that? Oh, I go home and I watch YouTube. All right. What do you watch on YouTube? Japanese shows. There you go. That's your answer. You got to make it 24/7. If you want to learn something, it doesn't matter if it's a language, if it's bodybuilding, if it's getting better at something else that you're doing, it has to be a 24/7 endeavor. Otherwise, it's not going to succeed. It's not going to work. This is exactly what I did. You spoke to that, Dibz, and that's exactly what it is. Do you agree, Mike?
Yeah, so true. If you're trying to accomplish something, you have to immerse yourself in it. And taking your example of learning English, if somebody is not a native English speaker, the only way they're going to get good at speaking English is that they immerse themselves. So they got to surround themselves with people who speak English, watch television shows that are only in English, listen to music that's only in English, that immerse yourself.
Exactly.
I think that I try to spend 1 hour a day listening to something. YouTube is fucking amazing, by the way. YouTube, I think, is the best thing to happen in our generation. There's so much fucking knowledge on YouTube. So much. So I'll go to like Milos's page. I go to, Charles Glass, and I'll do 1 hour a day just listening to a topic, whether it be, training, anabolics, dieting, something there. And I'll sit and listen. And, this is why I do this while I work. So I need background sound. I'm like, okay, that's interesting. Then later on that day, I'm like, hey, I got a question for you. And then I'll bounce it off you to make sure that, that what they're saying is right or your philosophy on it. But you do that every single day. That's 365 hours. If you do 1 hour a day of bodybuilding, 365 hours of training, of just passively listening, you're going to be smart if you do that for 4 years. If it's just 1 hour a day where you're learning one thing from a guru, you're going to be fucking smart. Ask Dave on Dave Palumbo. I mean, his philosophies may not be the same as Mike's, but he does know his shit. He's very, very knowledgeable. And, if you just watch an episode a day of Ask Dave, in a year from now, you're going to fucking know a lot about bodybuilding. Or at least Dave Palumbo's theories of bodybuilding, because, there's some shit we disagree with. There's a lot we do agree with, but that's the beauty of the sport. There's more than one way to skin a cat.
Exactly. Definitely.
It's not beneath someone to go to someone else to get knowledge. I think sometimes people get this, well, if I go to him to learn this, then that means I'm not as good. No, it actually takes a bigger person to admit that you need to go to this person, learn what they know so you can add it to your own. And I think that used to be a big problem with me. I think that is a problem with some people is they can't swallow their pride, or they get high and mighty because they nailed something once and then they get stuck and they want to assume that they already have the answer and they don't want to go somewhere else to learn it because they think that puts them beneath someone. But if you go learn from multiple people and put it together your own way, I mean, who's to say it's not what gets you above everybody else? Maybe you learn something from somebody and you add on to it to make it better.
Yeah.
I think people have, especially, man, I think I see it with, can't tell if I see this more with guys or women when I train them. I don't know. I guess certain personality types, sometimes they don't want to be, they come to you for help. They don't want to listen because they think it hurts their pride. And I'm like, no, actually it's making you look stupid. It would make you look better if you would just admit you don't know this and I do, and you need to learn this from me to make what you're doing better.
I was on I was just going to say this. I was on a panel very recently with a bunch of other, coaches, and someone in the audience asked me, it's like, what does it take what makes you such a great master hypnotist? And I said, listen, who says I'm a master? I'm still a student. Always a student. I'm always learning something. It's not because I claim myself to be a master at something. I do what I do best because I'm always learning something. And this is so true, I think, for any aspect of anything that you do.
Yeah, there's Kung Fu masters that you are learning other styles of, like, he knows Kung Fu, he's going to study Wing Chun, but, he's going to be a master compared to someone who's never fucking done it before, that's for sure. So I think that's like, perspective as well. They're saying a master, someone who knows so much and considers himself a guru. I think that's when we say master, that's the language that we're putting. So another thing I want to talk about is I believe that sometimes in the world, seeing is believing. I think sometimes when you see shit get done, it makes it possible for other people. And I want to talk about the 4-minute mile. They specifically said it was impossible to run a mile under 4 minutes. And then in the 70s, motherfucker came and said, fuck you motherfuckers, I'm doing it. And he ran the 4-minute mile, right? Since then, 10,000 people have won a 4-minute mile, right? Sometimes you got to see other people make it possible, that it's possible. You got to be that example to other people saying, fuck you, I think it's possible. I was told I was going to turn pro by many people, right? I'll never forget it. The only reason we did the Frigno, the only reason that I got first in the Frigno was everyone was doing nationals. The only reason I did well at nationals was because the judges are still learning what they were looking for. Only reason this, only reason that, only reason this, right? So people will see, but once you start placing and doing, everybody else found that it was possible. I think that, since I turned pro, you had Shin turn pro, then you had Amber turn pro, and then you had, how was the guy's name?
Leon.
Leon turned pro. Once you see that motherfucker can do it, other people are going to say, all right, it's definitely possible to get done too. Do you agree with that? I mean, I think that's a big thing. I think that's, I'm not tooting my own horn, but I think that's a standard I think I've set, and I like to continue to set to everybody is that, oh, you can't put on muscle on a ship. Fuck you. I put on 15 pounds while on a ship.
Right. I think it's very important that you see your peers who at one point you considered yourself equals to them, and then they achieve something that you don't think that you can achieve, and that it makes you think, oh well, maybe I can achieve that same goal, so I think it's really important that people see others' success.
I know Shin and I, if people don't know who Shin is a maniac in Japan. Probably one of the toughest fucking bodybuilders I've ever had to work out with, hands down, badass motherfucker. Great dude. I think I've had one conversation with him because he doesn't speak much English, but him and I absolutely feed off each other. And I think that feeding off, having a great team, having a great workout partner is extremely important because, when he would squat X amount of weight, I knew I had to throw the plate on, and I would piss him off sometimes, but in not in a pissed off way, but in a, buddy respectful, because now he had to do it. And Shin would go, he didn't give a fuck what it was. He would go and do it. If I did it, he did it. And it was the same vice versa. And I think that's what made us, not just great teammates, but great competitors, because no matter what, if I'm going to bring it, I knew he was going to bring it. So that little, respect that we have amongst each other is what I think made us both great athletes over the last, 7 years. Me and him started together, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. You guys really pushed each other to be better every time. And I see that a lot as I train most of my clients in groups. And when I do that, I see the positive peer pressure that happens from that group setting where, you're actually competing against your training partner because, it's just that good positive peer pressure that happens.
And a lot like wrestling, you got a great wrestling partner, you know what I mean? You guys are going live and he pins you, you're going to want to get back at him, but that's what makes you a better wrestler, better athlete. You have to listen, you're not going to win if you're not a competitive motherfucker. That's the real look, nobody wants to hear that these days. You got to be competitive with your training partner. You got to be competitive. You've got to bring yourself to that next level. Every version that you're going to get to requires a new version of you. I could say now, the me this year was not the same me as last year because I saw what it takes now to be in that first place position.
Exactly. I mean, if you want to get better at something, you don't play against somebody that you're going to beat all the time. You learn by failure. So, I learned this lesson early on in wrestling is that I don't get any better by wrestling with wrestlers that are not as better wrestlers than I am. Right. So I always would get better from wrestling people who could just, who are way better than I was. And I found that out because at some point that you get to the point in your head that, I'm so good that I'm just gonna play against all of these people that I know I can beat. But yet, instead of thinking about it and really wanting to push yourself, trying to just play against those who you can beat so that you get better,
Like, do you feel like you've reached a point where you feel like you've done enough and you feel satisfied, or you feel like you still got a long way to go before you hang up the mantle and you say, okay, you know what? I'm going to pass this over to someone else and I'm going to take a back seat on what I'm doing.
He ain't stopped until I go to the Olympia. So I'll answer that question for you right there.
I think about I'm actually in that process of not being so hands-on anymore. I brought on one of my good friends, Domenick, to help me train my clients. And that was a big help because physically, training guys as strong as Dom and some of my other clients, it takes a toll on me. I'm not getting any younger. So I definitely see myself stepping back a little more as the years go by, but I will always have a semblance of control over things, that I want things done a certain way. And if it's going to be what I consider the Kawasaki way, it has to be my way.
That's amazing the way you said that. That was just beautiful.
Jay, anything?
Kind of off topic.
You got the bewildered look on your face.
Because Mike's been in the game a long time. It's kind of off topic question for what we've been talking about, but it's something that I hear everybody talk about on podcasts and stuff now. And, you know, being as Mike competed up until early 2000s and been in the game a long time, why do you think there's this big argument against the conditioning of the 90s versus today? And why do you think bodybuilders today look different versus, not as far as size, but as far as aesthetics and conditioning, as bodybuilders of the 80s and 90s? Like, you can look at Gasperi or, you know, Gary Stridham, Andreas Munzer, who's probably one of those shredded bodybuilders ever. Even up to Ronnie Coleman and Marcus Rule, these guys were shredded. And then you look at some of the guys today, and for me personally, it doesn't seem like as much detail as there as it used to be.
Ooh, it's a slippery slope there. I think some of it has to do with drugs that are no longer available, and some has to do with the chase for more and more size, because anytime that you try to strip off body fat, it comes with a little bit of sacrifice of muscle. So in the pursuit of being as shrink wrap tight as Andreas Munzer, I don't think somebody like Big Ramy could get that tight without sacrificing a bunch of muscle mass. And what people are always, I think, just the popularity of men's bodybuilding is still to be shocked and awed, basically. And back then, in the late 90s and early 2000s, guys were big and very detailed and conditioned, but yet, as opposed to guys who are today competing, I think they're not as heavily muscled.
I've looked into this a little bit. I mean, when it comes to Andreas Munzer, I mean, we know he got shredded because he utilized things you probably can't find now. And I've heard that on more than one podcast from people who knew him. But, you know, a lot of guys back in the 80s and 90s were like, it's all protein and carbs, no fat. But then, you know, from my experience, if you got somebody with shit insulin sensitivity, that's just not going to work as well. And, but then you have some guys that preach all fat, no carbs and stuff. I've even heard as crazy theories as they use so much of certain types of drugs that they're not taking breaks and letting the muscle cells heal up. And that's why they're not getting as hard and grainy on stage. I actually recently just heard that from a guru that was doing a podcast. When you compare usage of certain stuff versus how they used it back then. Then, you know, you can talk into arguments of training for density and training for graininess, like, you know, your progressive overload, which is becoming one of my favorite forms of training. But they, you know, there's all kinds of factors that are in there. And it just seems like nobody can really figure out. I've even heard that the type of fucking lighting they use now makes them look different from the type of lighting they had back in the 90s, because the LED lighting makes them look smoother. And it's just all over the place.
Oh yeah, the New York Pro lighting was horrible. I couldn't believe such a big show like that has such bad fucking lighting. I was as tan as can be, and I looked pale on stage. I couldn't believe it.
And you watch Generation Iron, the first one on Blu-ray, and those guys are fucking peeled. But then you watch the clips of the shows on stage, and you're like, I'm not seeing that there. But these guys were like up on stage filming them in Blu-ray. I remember Hide, his glutes, he's standing there, were just popping and just like you can see the fibers moving as he was walking around, but then you see footage of the stuff on YouTube and you're like, fuck, it's not there.
I think sometimes when you look great in the gym and then you try something radical to look 10% better on contest day, it kind of backfires a lot of times.
Oh, I know about that.
You know, if you know, you're looking great the week prior to the show and you're just doing your normal water consumption, sodium intake, your normal diet food or whatever, and you look great, then why gamble and try to look 10% better by doing something that's totally like different from what you're doing now?
You remember,
know what I mean?
You remember when I did the first Akaika and like 2 weeks out, I was taking pictures and looking good. Then I showed up show day and looked like a skinny fat kid because I tried to do all this stupid ass shit last minute.
Right.
I still look back at those pictures and kick myself in the ass. I remember, I want to say it was Stan or somebody that we were talking about it after. And he was like, why in the fuck weren't you just keep doing what you were doing last week? I was like, so I was going no carbs. He's like, well, it was fucking working. Why'd you put anything in there? You should have just kept, you did your normal day and just showed up. You'd have been fine. And then somebody else was listening. They were like, don't worry. You'll make that mistake like 3 or 4 more times before you finally get it. I remember that was fucking embarrassing because I walked out and wow, you said something. It was funny because it was a typical Kawasaki comment. I came back and you're like, well, at least you were leaner than last time or some shit like that. I was just I was like, man, what the fuck? Yeah, that was like the first time I competed out of the Navy. And it was going, I mean, I think I just was going so hard, but when I tried to come out of it, and my body just wasn't going to respond. I should just, like I said, I should just kept doing what I was doing and showed up that day. I think I'd been better off.
Yeah.
I remember.
I had a question about, you know, going all natural. I want to know the difference because, you know, at some point I had this very massive interest in, Dibz knows about this, and now I'm in modeling now, but at some point I wanted to do men's physique, classic men's physique at the WNBF, which is the natural. What do you think is the major challenge for someone that's going all natural without the use of any external?
That's a good question. I like that.
Ooh, that is a very loaded question as far as there's a lot that needs to be addressed when you're a natural athlete. I think it requires almost perfect attention to all the details. Where your nutrition is spot on. There's no training days that you're just phoning in. Every day is a day that you need to try to be better. Cardio needs to be done consistently. Your rest needs to be on point because you know, performance enhancing drugs gives a lot of buffer to those things. And if you take the performance enhancing drugs out of it, then you need to be more on your game than the guys who's taking drugs. I want to say something about being natural and trying to accomplish that stage ready physique. I think it has to do a lot with, for one, genetics, and for two, the second thing is that, you know, you have to make sure that hormonally that you're healthy. You know, you can think like blood work wise, as far as like having like a normal testosterone level for a man, especially, is gonna make it either easier or more difficult for you to get into shape. If you're at the borderline of being normal, it's going to be a lot more difficult than if you're at the higher end of normal. And there are things that you can do with over-the-counter supplements or some of the research peptides that can increase your natural production of testosterone, which is actually better for you because you're not shutting down your axis by taking something that's going to, stop your production of testosterone. So
interesting.
Akira wanted to take bull testicle pills. So I was like, no, you're not taking these. I looked at the ingredients made from bull balls. I was like, no.
That was a 90s thing. Those things were popular.
I was about to say, fuck it, see what happens. To piggyback off what Mike said, when I was in 2019, I started the Team Kawasaki Jacksonville version, and I had a pretty good team going. And our actual team was a 100% natural team. These were all military guys that they saw me do the New York Pro, and they all wanted to be bodybuilders. So I was like, fuck it. Yeah, I want to see, what I knew. So what I did is I trained people based on their body type. So if I knew if I had an ectomorph, if I had a mesomorph, if I had an endo, which you don't really want to place people in just those three, but for the sake of what I was doing, it really worked out. We actually won the overall at the men's physique division. He turned to OCB Pro. He's a natural pro, but he was a true mesomorph. So I was able to train him, get his diet. I trained another guy who lost 100 pounds. He was an endomorph. This was a fat fuck. He came up, I wanted to be a bodybuilder. I was like, all right. And Akira, I had him doing the same diet you were, except yours is a little more advanced because I learned more in the last few years. So I put him on the full, the ketogenic, the chicken thighs, stabilize the blood sugar. And one thing I've learned is that for endomorphs, you stabilize their fucking blood sugar and you throw in some apple cider vinegar twice a day without water, their blood sugar is going to be perfect and you can just burn fat. And, you're an example too, you're on that endomorph diet, right, where you're, very low carb. Well, actually I upped them a little bit, but when you first started, we had you on no carbohydrates, just, stabilizing. So I think that, for a lot of natural athletes, you really got to know what your genetics are and you got to train based on those genetics. If you're an ectomorph, you're a skinny fuck, your carbohydrates may be a lot higher than, for example, yours. And that was a system I think worked very well. And I really enjoyed training, people for OCB shows. It's really big for people that are natural. It's actually really big on the mainland. The OCB it's like the NPC for natural people. Really cool to train them. So, you don't have to take the drug route if you don't want to. And there's not one person that is on anabolics that's going to judge somebody who says, well, I just want to be natural. No. Hey, you want to make that decision? We feel, 100% respect. Let's see what we can do. But don't think, unless you are a true genetic freak, that you're going to go to the IFBB and be completely 100%, natural. What'd you say, Jed?
I'd say I'm good.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to say something.
Good.
Jed said, fuck you. That's what he said.
No, I didn't say anything. You're good.
I'm just busting your balls, bro. Oh, yeah. Wow. This hour fucking flew by. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Mike, you got any advice you want to give anybody out there to end the show with?
Oh, I just want to thank you for having me on.
Of course.
I didn't know I was going to be able to speak about so many things as we did today. And I really appreciate it.
Anytime you want to come back, talk about anything, man, we'll have you on. Love to.
Yeah. Sidebar, Mike. Sidebar. Do you speak Japanese?
Very little. I took several years in high school, but I didn't have enough people to speak Japanese too after that. So I've lost most of my ability to speak Japanese. I understand some words and I can speak a little bit to my client Shin. He's from Japan. Speaks a little bit of English, but his Japanese is a lot better. So
okay, interesting. Yeah.
Leg day today. Party time. Yes, Shin, party time.
Well, if he ever needs a translator, you know who to hit up.
Perfect. Sounds good.
All right, everybody. For those who are looking for inquiries and training, online training, in-person training, you can reach out to Mike. You can reach out to me directly as well. You can DM me,
I'll put all of it in the description. I'll put everything in the description.
Yep. You go to the website, www.thekawasakiway.com. We've gotten some great feedback on there. So, there's many ways to reach out if you do got the testicular fortitude to, handle Mike's training. He's always taken on, some badass athletes. So be sure to reach out.
All right. You guys have a good weekend. Mike, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
All right. See ya.